Welcome to Rock That Relationship, a podcast about all things relationship with Corey and Tracy.
Now let's get real and start creating relationships that rock.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rock That Relationship. We are here today to talk to Charity and Holly, who are our late to les and gold star long distance age gap folks that are going to tell us their lovely love story. So we are so excited to have them here, and it's great because we were chatting a little bit with them beforehand, and Charity was telling us all about her Facebook group called Lesbian Journeys that brings together lesbians for all different kinds of events. And so we'll make sure to put some information in the show notes about that later on. But we're so excited to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll just jump right in because I almost wanted to push record when we were just doing our pre-call here because there's so many interesting things we were talking about. But maybe you can share a little bit with us about, again, late to les, gold star, long distance, age gap love story. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, your backgrounds?
Well, and maybe we need to explain late to les and gold star real quick because not everybody's in the know about those terms.
Oh, well, that is true. Well, maybe Charity and, you and Holly can share with us what that means to you. And how you define that.
Well, for me, I was married to a man for 20 years and got divorced in 2017. And right after my divorce was final, I came out as a lesbian at the age of 42. So for me, late in life lesbian is somebody who came out much later in life. To me, it feels like I had a whole nother life prior to coming out. My story is a little different than some other who came out later in life. I had no idea I was gay. I was raised to, grow up and marry a man and have children and take care of a family and do certain things. And I'm a people pleaser and wanted to please my parents. So that's exactly what I did until, things just went south. And the last couple of years of my marriage were really rocky. And there were things in that time frame that made me consider that maybe my sexuality was not straight, but I was married. So, exploring that was not an option. But, as my marriage was disintegrating, I had said, if this ends, I'm going to take the opportunity to explore this other avenue. So as soon as my divorce was final, that's exactly what I did and got into my first same-sex relationship immediately after my divorce was final. So, what's OG?
I have never been with a man. I don't plan to. What did somebody say? Late in life straight?
Late in life straight.
Absolutely not.
Right.
That's not happening.
No.
Yeah.
But same idea in my family though. We were supposed to grow up and be straight.
Mm-hmm.
So you came out then.
I came out when I was 17. I was in military school.
Oh, and Holly's 49.
I'm 49.
Charity's 49 and Holly's 35 now. And so you came out, Charity, at 42 and Holly came out at 17, right? So radically different, adult lives,
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
tell us about that. Is that hard for you guys, to navigate with each other? Do you feel like you're dating two different species? Do you feel like you're on the same page about stuff?
I don't feel like it's that big of a deal. I mean, originally, once upon a time would have told you I would have never dated a gold star lesbian. I literally said, I will not date somebody who is younger than 5 years. I will not do long distance, and I will not do a gold star.
And then the universe sent you the perfect package, far away and all those things.
Yes, the universe sent me this little Georgia peach, and I was like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes. So, but I think it works because, as a late life lesbian, I feel like I didn't get to I didn't get to be like in my 20s and be gay. And I didn't get that experience. So it almost feels like I wouldn't say a baby gay because I feel like I'm past the baby gay stage. And I don't know that I'm really in the teenage gay stage because I feel like I'm a little bit past that because I've been out for 7 years. But I feel like I'm in like my mid-20 gay stage. I feel like it fits, because there are times when I feel like because she's been out longer than I have, I feel like she's the older gay in the relationship.
Oh, interesting.
Like maybe not as interested in all the like wearing the pride rings and the flat. Like I've found myself as I've aged, maybe it's just because I'm older and I really don't want to go out that much anymore, but it's like certain things or they're not as new. And so maybe for you, I don't know, like Holly, are you still at all the parades and doing all that kind of stuff, or is that kind of like dimmed for you a little bit?
No, I wouldn't say it's dimmed for me. I still have a lot of Pride shirts. We just went to Nashville Pride.
Oh, nice.
Now that was actually our first date.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's a stressful first date.
How did you meet then? Okay, that's your first date. I mean, if Charity, you're saying that like the Holly was not at all fit the profile of kind of what you were looking for. How in the world did you cross paths?
So, I was on Facebook dating and, I had just spent 2 weekends. Like I had this like whole like 2 weekends, this whole like long week and a half type thing. Hanging out with a whole bunch of friends. We went to the G Flip concert and everything. All of my friends are younger. So I should probably preference that by saying all of my friends are pretty much younger than me, especially my local friends. They're all like in their 30s. So, we were all hanging out and I met a new friend. Her name is Jess and, she's 37 and she is a Spitfire from Texas. Dear God. She is a big personality. And, we had a lot of great conversations and, I was sitting on the dock at Old Hickory Lake crying my eyes out because I was like, I am too old for this shit. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
You're okay.
I am too old for this. Like this is, I had a certain idea of what my life was going to look like. And I was feeling like I was fighting against the hands of time, I'm like, I thought I was going to be further along in my process. And I thought I was going to, like, I want the lake house. I want these things. And I was like, I thought I was going to have all of this with a partner. And here I am, I'm approaching 50 and I don't have any of the things that I thought I was going to have. And I'm running out of time, and I was talking to my friend Jess and she was like, why are you crying? I'm explaining it to her. And I said, dating is so freaking hard. I meet these women, I'm at that point, I should mention that I've only been in 2 same-sex relationships. I've dated some women, but I've only had 2 other serious relationships. So Holly's only my 3rd actual relationship. And the other 2 were older than me. And, I was telling my friend Jess, I was like, I'm dating, getting in these relationships with these older women and, they're either, they're ready to retire. They're wanting to retire, looking at retirement and slowing down in life and, let's be this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, I get it. I'm getting ready to be 50, but I'm not
You're
dying.
just coming alive. Right.
Right.
And you're
I was
having
like,
a
I
whole
feel
new
like
life.
I'm just living, and then, I was like, talking to some women who were like no more than 5 years younger than me, but their mindset was still different. And I was like, I felt stuck. And Jess was like, why are you even limiting yourself to an age range? Like, why can't you date somebody who's younger than 5 years? And I was like, because are they going to be financially stable? Because I'm going to require them to be financially stable. Are they going to have kids? Cause, I don't want to do small kids. My kids are grown. I'm going to start over. And she's like, well, you don't know. I mean, there's plenty of women out there, who are in their 30s, who are financially stable and don't want to have children, don't have children and don't want to have children. She's like, you don't know because you're not looking. You've put yourself in a box. She's like, so, take the lid off. And, so yeah, 2 days later on Facebook dating, this one pops up and I was like 34 in Georgia. The worst thing that could happen is I never hear from her. I was like, I'm going to swipe right and we're going to see what happens because she is so cute. And like, I could tell from her bio that she like fixes cars and she like fixes things. Like she's what I call a handy dandy lesbian. And I was like, that's like right up my alley. And then I hate to be like this, but I was like, oh, that bun on top of her head. I was like, I bet that hair is long. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, all right, we're going to swipe right and see what happens. And, cause the worst thing that's going to happen is I never hear from her and she's in Georgia. So it's not like I have to run into her, see her at Walmart or something.
Right.
You know? And, so I swiped right and just was like, oh, good about my day. And then 30 minutes later, I got the notification on Facebook that it's a match. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and we're going to throw it out there and jump into her DMs because if I wait for her to make the first move, maybe she won't. I don't know. So I'm just going to do it and be brave and see what happens. Because again, the worst thing that's going to happen is she doesn't say anything back. And she did. And then here we are. We've been not talking ever since.
Yeah, and I'll just give for our listeners, and then Holly can jump in with her side that, you know, I've been watching you guys on Facebook, and Holly drives 5.5 hours each way in good traffic to go see Charity. They're lovey-lovey. They really are compatible. You guys have a really great thing going, and it's so nice to see. And you guys are really loving and respectful to each other, you know? And just in the short time that I've known you on Facebook, like I've learned just some very sweet things about you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And what happened, Holly, when you saw her like match on Facebook dating or her swiping on you?
When it first popped up, I mean, obviously there had been some other women who had swiped on me and I was like, okay, started some conversations and then hers popped up and it said 49 and I was like, never dated anybody older ever. Everybody's always been way younger. But I went for it, and then we exchanged numbers immediately.
Yeah.
Non-stop talking, and here we are.
There you are. How long have you guys been dating?
Tomorrow will actually be a month, so it's not even that long. So you guys should check in with us in like 6 months, because by then she'll be living here.
Yeah.
Like she's already changed jobs, and it's in her contract that she can transfer in 6 months to Tennessee.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're my kind of lesbian. That's what I'm saying. Get it. And, you know, it's interesting because there's interesting questions, right? So yeah, let's check in 6 months and see. But what have you noticed? Like, are you just in this complete like bubble right now? You're like, your eyes are glazed over? Or are you noticing like issues with the age, with the driving, with the things like that?
I don't know.
I mean, you can still be in love and still recognize issues, right?
Absolutely. I don't know that our issues though are age related or it's the drive. Distance though does make it hard because we can't be together all the time. So I have a lot of anxiety. Like I am diagnosed anxiety disorder. So like for me, I need like that constant reassurance, that constant check-in. Like I haven't seen you in 5 days. Are we okay? And Holly picks up on that without me even usually having to say anything. And she'll just chime in. I'll get these long text messages and I call them pre-emptive wedding vows that she just sends me. And it's like she just is in tune into my anxiety and knows. And she'll even say, you know, no, you're not getting on my nerves. No, I am not bothered by this. Like, I want to be the one who reassures you and tells you that everything is okay. But I think I do the same thing for her because there are times when, you know, I don't know that it's so much the distance that gets to her. Our backgrounds are very different. Our childhoods are incredibly different. And so our trauma, while we both have it, it's different trauma. And so, you know, we all worry about, you know, is our trauma going to be too much for our partner? So there's that reassurance, you know, on that end. So I think, you know, the things that we are working through, I don't know that the age is that big of a difference. I mean, I don't know that it makes that big of a deal. We joke about it, you know, like I'll be like, yeah, I was, you know, getting married and having kids when, you were entering elementary school.
She's like, where have you been my whole life? And I was like, growing up.
So Holly, has Charity made you watch all the old episodes of Friends and things like cultural references? I dated someone who was 14 years younger than me. We were in a relationship for a long time, and I'm like, we can't be together until you watch every episode of Friends and watch St. Elmo's Fire.
No, we don't really watch TV.
No, we're usually out and about doing things.
Yeah.
So
hanging out with friends or whatever, really.
Going places, doing things. But if we were to watch TV, we would not.
Well, plus you're only together for a really short amount of time right now, right? So you don't have that boring downtime, because every time you're together, you're like maximizing all of your time.
Yeah, but when Holly was sick and she had just gotten out of the hospital from surgery and we were chilling, like we watched crime documentaries because that's what we like. So.
Okay. That's good. That's good. So I'm curious, Holly, from your perspective. Okay. So that you said the age thing isn't really a thing for you, but had you ever dated someone who was late to lesbian, or had you always been with people who were more like Gold Star, or at least had come out at an early age?
Honestly, no, I have never dated anybody that was late lesbian. I have dated multiple bisexuals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's definitely different.
Is it?
It's not a bad thing. It definitely isn't. I know in the beginning I was like, okay, is this truly who she is? Or is she going to go back to, no, this isn't me. I want to go back to men, Wasn't sure. But I can definitely say she's not going back to men.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it makes, so Charity has two older kids, 25 and 23, I think you said. Do you think, you can't would it be different, do you think, if she had younger kids? It's hard to speculate, right? But if she was co-parenting more on a daily basis with her ex-husband?
I don't think so. I dated one woman who had a small child. She was one when we got together, and she was co-parenting. It really wasn't too hard. The child's father was a jerk, so it's completely different.
Right.
It wasn't bad. I wouldn't say no. I would never.
Have there been issues for your kids, Charity, with this change in kind of identity?
You mean me coming out later?
Yeah. Has that presented issues for your kids or your ex-husband? Has that caused issues?
It hasn't created issues with my kids. When I told my oldest daughter, when I came out to her, her response was, "I'm glad you finally figured it out." My youngest daughter was surprised. She was like, "Oh, wow. Okay." But that was really it. I raised both of my kids, even though I was not raised to be open-minded and to be accepting. I did my best to raise my daughters that way. My ex-husband, wasn't as involved in the parenting, and we definitely had different views on things. But because I was a stay-at-home mom, I really got to kind of put in my morals and values more than his. So, I really kind of went in on acceptance and open-mindedness with my girls. So they really were, more accepting and kind of just rolled with it. And now it's who I am, it doesn't matter to them. My oldest daughter identifies as bisexual, but she didn't come out until after I did. So, I don't know. Kids just don't care about those kinds of things, Well, they care more about how you treat people and, what your values, morals, and political views are.
It's interesting though. I think, I don't know, maybe Corey, you have a similar experience to mine. I'm over 50, so I'm going to be 54 in a month, and then Corey's 50. And for me, growing up or being out early on, and I had a real bias against anybody who wasn't, just dating women. I mean, I slept with a couple guys like in then like college, right? But then that was just to come, what they called at the time, like a beard or, to throw people off or to try to like, okay, your parents are pressuring you. So, okay, I'll try it, whatever. And then you're like, what? But I never really like, had a long relationship with a guy, but I had real biases against that. Like for me, it was very hard. Then I ended up marrying someone who was married to a man for 20 years. And I found she had young children when we got together, and it was very complicated for me. Maybe I'm just a more uptight person than the two of you. You guys seem way more chill than I am, but it was like psychologically, it was hard for me. Cause when we say like OG les or like, I don't know. I mean, I came out in the early 1990s, right? And so there was so much bias against us. And it's interesting because we are in a very weird time where the kids of or kids in that generation that your kids are in are way more accepting. And yet in some ways our country is going so flat back at us. Like, it's weird. I'm finding it very hard. It's like, we're progressing in so many ways. I was just watching the WNBA All-Stars game yesterday, and there's the two women who are in a relationship, and they came out, they're both playing in the All-Stars game holding hands. I mean, that would have never, ever, the WNBA wouldn't even recognize lesbian fans back in the 90s, right? Like they didn't even want anything to do with lesbians in the audience. So I'm finding this fascinating. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, the times have definitely changed. I mean, my daughters just, they're like, they go to Pride with us, they celebrate all the things. I mean, most of the rainbow stuff that I own is because my daughters bought it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I first came out, literally, I don't think there was a holiday that went by, Mother's Day, my birthday, Christmas, any reason to buy me rainbow stuff. Buying it. Like
mm-hmm.
My kids will scream from the mountaintops that their mom is gay before their mom
mm-hmm.
does,
So interesting. You guys are both in what's considered the Deep South, right?
Yes.
You live in the Deep South and you're both white presenting. I assume you're white. I don't know if you are. I'm just making that assumption, but white women in the Deep South, both out lesbians now. Is that problematic?
I don't know that it's problematic. We did go out to dinner last night and the couple across from us just kept kind of staring us down.
Even the waitstaff did.
Yeah. So that
really?
and that was a first. That was a first. And we were at a fine dining establishment in Nashville, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Like I've not really noticed this before. But also I've not really had a partner that when I would go out to dinner with them where we would, sit close and hold hands and, be so obvious that we're in a relationship. So maybe it would have happened before if I had been in a relationship that I was comfortable enough to have PDA, so this is really the first relationship that I've been in where like I'm even accepting to PDA where it's something that I want.
Right.
Maybe I would have noticed it before, but I definitely noticed it last night. We like rectified the situation by immediately, after we left, we went to a lesbian bar so we could just, feel
better. Right.
Just reverse it.
Yeah.
What about like your friends and stuff? I mean, I can imagine each of you going to like friends or other than your children, trusted family members and saying, I met somebody and they are 15 years older or 15 years younger than me. They live 5.5 hours away from me. And oh, by the way, like this person's, late in life or this person's, always been a lesbian. Like you tell people this. Are you having positive supportive reactions from other people? Or because we have some of this stuff, like as Tracy was saying, particularly, some of the feelings of some lesbians are like, I don't want to date somebody who's late in life because I'm worried that they're going to go back to men. There are some things in there. And so other people can have their own opinions and certainly sway, especially like the age thing. Oh, that person's too young. They're too immature, or that person's too old. They're slowing down, like you said. I'm just curious if you've had support from your friends around you with this, and not that it should be the be all end all of whether or not you do this, but it helps to have support. So I'm just curious what you've heard from your friends and family.
No, I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I've had a lot of support from most of everybody that I've told. I think I got some backlash from maybe one or two people, the age and then the distance. Nothing really about late in life. But it didn't matter to me, honestly. The people who did support me, that their opinion mattered more than those two people who said, "Oh, I think she's too old for you. I mean, she's closer to your mom's age." No, she's really not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is interesting the things that people say. We had a whole episode on that, but that was related to breakups and things that people say that make you want to slap in the face. But I do find it interesting. People are immediately willing to give you their opinion about your relationship, knowing nothing about it other than a few like very general facts.
Right. I feel like they should have asked more questions before just looking at the age.
Exactly. Right.
Because honestly,
I mean,
we act the same.
We do. We act the same. I think we balance each other in a way, you know? So, yeah. My friends totally supported it. I mean, if it wouldn't have been for my friend Jess, you know, and her telling me take the box off the lid, you know, I mean, take the lid off the box, you know what I mean? So, and all my other friends were totally, I mean, the majority of my friends are late in life lesbians. So, you know.
And I want to say we met you through Club Lilies, which is, you know, Jamie Messina's group that's for later in life lesbians. And it's very interesting. I'm noticing a trend that's different from when I was younger, right? It does seem, I think, because women have more options and people generally in this society right now, at least, have more options. So like 30 years ago, a woman who was unhappy in her marriage wouldn't even like probably contemplate, oh, there could be something different out there, right? And it's very hard to leave a marriage and all that. And so I think the openness of society, which is what freaks a lot of very conservative people out, is that, oh, this is turning you gay, right? Because you like, oh, you see gayness everywhere, you just want to join in and be gay. But it's that more so that you have the option that if things did not work out with your husband, that, oh, let me look at why and let me see why. Whereas in the past, people really couldn't do that, you know, or they did it at great expense to themselves.
Absolutely. Being a lesbian was never an option when I was younger. You know, I mean, it was never presented like I could be anything other than straight. I mean, I was literally told, if you are gay, you will be disowned, you'll be kicked out of the house, and we will never speak to you again. So, I mean, when I came out as a lesbian, my parents, who still say they love me, but immediately went and wrote me out of their will. So,
oh my goodness.
I mean, you know, I can still come to, you know, I'm still invited to, you know, Christmas and holidays and stuff, but, you know.
How does that make you feel? Do you want to go to those holidays and stuff? Not that we need to get money, right? It's not being cut out of the will isn't about like, oh, I want my money. It's that it's like a real disowning of you as a person. And then, okay, well, we'll tolerate you in these certain circumstances, but how do you feel? And how do you feel, Holly? And I don't know what your parents think, Holly, but like, do you want to, for years, I didn't speak to my parents, 5 years, because they wouldn't accept me, but that was back a long, long time ago, you know?
I only see my parents really at holidays. Like we don't do a whole lot together. I call and talk to my mom, you know, occasionally. But we're not close like we used to be prior. We were closer before I came out. And it's definitely changed my relationship with my parents. Holly has not met my parents yet, and I am so nervous for her to meet them, not because, their opinion matters, but because I just don't want them to be disrespectful to her. Because if they would, we would get in the car and leave, you know, and I don't like confrontation, but that's what we would do, you know. We would just get in the car and go. And sometimes it's not my mom so much as my dad. My dad can just be inconsiderate at times, but so can my mom. You know, my mom can be very manipulating. So, but I just don't, I don't like their views on things. I can't change it though, but they're still my parents. And so I'm always going to have like some love for them and some respect, but they're not going to have full respect for me because they're not giving it either. And they're not respectful of who I am. So it's like walking a tightrope with them all the time. So I just keep a distance. So, and they're the only family I have. I've only been in Tennessee for 11 years. The rest of my family is back in Maryland, where I'm from. And I'm not close with them except for my niece, who is also a lesbian. So, I don't have a whole lot of family here. So for me, it's more important. The relationship with my daughters is more important. It's more important to me that Holly and my daughters get along. It does not matter to me if my parents approve of my relationship with Holly and whether or not they like Holly. It doesn't matter to me because that's not going to have any bearing on our relationship. I mean, because the truth of the matter is, they've already told me, my mom has already said, I will love you no matter what because you are my daughter, but I do not approve of your lifestyle. I do not agree with it, and I do not accept it.
Isn't that, it's so hurtful, right? And it's so interesting. Like, you're okay as long as you were straight. You're okay as long as you were married to a man, and then you suddenly become unacceptable, right?
Right.
And Holly, like, is that stressful for you to think about meeting her parents, or how are your parents? Like, are you close to them, or?
No, both of my parents are deceased. They passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My dad passed away actually, I came out and he passed away before I could tell him. Literally within a month. And then my mom passed away in 2022 from a massive heart attack. She knew. But my mom was about the same. She would never, like, if I had a girlfriend and I brought him home, she would say, "Oh, this is Holly's friend." She would never say it was my girlfriend, ever. But I got to a point where I just stopped. And then when she had her stroke, I moved home, but our parents are about the same, so I'm not really about meeting her parents. I'm sure I'll be okay. I grew up the same way.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Holly, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a sister. Yes. She is younger than I am.
Do you have a relationship with her?
I do. It's interesting, but yes, we do have a relationship. She is accepting. She has 2 kids. They're accepting. They know. Well, TT's got a girlfriend. But the rest of my family, not so much. Southern Baptist. We'll just say.
See, the Deep South. Well, it's good that you're creating community through this lesbian journeys and these online, research. People like to bash social media all the time, and there are aspects of it that are bad, but there are aspects of it that I see even here that have brought you guys together, right? You would have never met had you not been on social media. You wouldn't have this lesbian journeys, which has brought together, what did you say, 1,100 people? And then Club Lilies, which is, I don't even know how many thousands of people. And, people feel so isolated off in these little places, but, especially for gay people, if their parents and families aren't supportive, it's so much harder, here I am just trying to rain on your parade. Like, let's have you on this podcast and point out all the things that could be bad. And you guys are like, no, everything's great. But, these are hard things. They're really hard things for people to deal with. So, you say, no, there's no issues, but you guys you're just dealing with the issues and rolling with it, right? So those are present. You're just managing them really well.
We are, but Holly's really chill. So, like, where my anxiety can be, like, up here, hers is, like, down here. So, like, I feel like we balance each other in a way. Like, she can bring it down for me, like, she doesn't, when I'm in the midst of, an anxiety attack, or I can even feel a panic attack coming on, like, she doesn't, like, get upset about it. She's not like, oh my God, here we go again. You're freaking out and you need to go deal with that on your own. Like, go breathe it out or whatever. She's like, call me, let's talk about it. Let me bring, like, what is it that's bothering you? Like, what is your brain telling you that's not true? And let me tell you that it's not true. All of those thoughts, they're not true, but let me tell you, you know? So,
And a lot of times I can pick up on where it's going to go wrong or what she's thinking before she even says it. And then I'll just send her a message and she's like, I don't know how you knew that, but thank you.
right. Like she'll preempt it. She's like, I already know that your brain is going to think this, but don't let it go there because here's the direction it needs to go. And then when she's having a moment, I don't know that I can feel it as much as she feels it with me, but, when she tells me, I'm able to say, it's going to be okay. Like that's where my 15 years being older, I think comes into play. I feel like it is helpful because I can be like, I've got 15 extra years. Like I've had all this experience of dealing with things. And I can tell you that, it's not too much. It's going to be okay. Like I can handle this. I've handled worse. I've been through things myself. Like I've got 15 extra years of things that I've been through that, I can handle this that you're throwing at me because I've already experienced all of this other stuff. So that's where I think the age gap, I feel like works in our favor. I don't know where it doesn't work in our favor. I feel like it always works in our favor because, it's those moments where I'm not acting 49. I'm acting like a kid and she doesn't care. She's never once said to me, please act your age. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that in the past from previous relationships. Act your age, act your age, act your age, and I've never had to hear that from her. She's like, go
You
have
mean they're
fun.
saying like, oh, because people want you to be more, what, stuffy or old fogey or something like that?
Yeah, it's like,
See, I don't, yeah, that's BS.
Yeah, like, so I organize, every year we have, through my group, Lesbian Journeys, we have the Lake Weekend. And this year we had, 45 lesbians on the lake. And it gets a little wild and crazy out there. Body shots. I mean, it just gets a little crazy, people going down the slides, topless, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And, in the past, it's always been, don't do this, don't do that, act your age, you're almost 50. Why, that's inappropriate to act like that at your age. And Holly's like, girl, have fun, enjoy yourself, have fun. Like, let's have fun together, and so it's never, she never tells me to act my age, she
See,
just,
I love that. Thank you. Because you don't know what we have no idea when we're going to be not here anymore. And it can happen like that. And you might as well have fun and live your life for yourself in the way that makes you happy and find somebody that validates that,
Right. And so, and I never think there's nothing that she's ever done where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so immature. The exact opposite. Like I look at her and I'm like, how are you only 35? Like your mindset is totally different, like her mindset for work, she's very motivated. She's very driven, which I mean, I'm a business owner. I run a business. I'm very motivated and driven in my career. And, it was very important to me to find somebody who could either respect the fact that my business is a priority, and they're going to be okay with that. Preferably having somebody who has a very good mindset for their own career, which she does. Like she takes her career very serious. And I don't know that all people her age are as serious about their career as she is, and we joke all the time that, between the two of us, like we call ourselves a power couple because we feel like we can conquer the world because we're both very motivated and driven to like accomplish things. We have a goal list.
See, and I'm 54 and I'm completely goal left, and that drives people crazy, including Dr. Corey Seemiller right there.
Yes,
like that's the thing is, that's what I'm saying about age. I think that age is just absurd. For me, it's like, it doesn't matter because I'm way more mature than all of you, right? And I'm the oldest one here. So I'm completely goalless and directionless. And it has nothing to do with somebody's age, right? It's just who they are and what you need to get out of a relationship or be with a person like that.
Well, right. I'm curious because, you all are navigating a lot of differences between the two of you, your upbringings, your family dynamics, all of these things we've been talking about. And now we hear that you have goals and you haven't been together that long. I'm curious to know how you got to a conversation where you decided to set goals together and what some of those goals are, because we've been talking about that during our season is having relationship goals, and we keep revisiting it, and it's kind of a new and foreign concept for people. But what are some of the goals you two have? And how did you get there? I want to know how that conversation happened.
You go
ahead. I think because of the distance between us, we have to communicate all the time. It's not like we can just go and be like, oh, I'll see you in a day or two, so we're not going to talk for a day or two. We literally are texting pretty much all day, every day. And then we'll talk on the phone at night for anywhere from 2 to 5 hours at night, which is new to Holly, because Holly is part of the texting world where we just text all the time, and I'm part of the let's have a phone call conversation world. And so we've kind of collided the two together. So there's a lot of communication. And so even though we haven't been together long, it feels like we have, because we have had so many conversations. And some of the goals, well, one of them is for Holly to close the gap, for Holly to move here in 6 months. She got an opportunity, a job came up where she could do the same thing that she's doing, but just do it with a different company. And she's said to me, hey, this was brought up to me, I could take this position, and in the contract I can put in that I can transfer in 6 months. So, our first goal is to close the gap for her to be here in 6 months. And, when we first started talking, it was, okay, well, when she moves here in 6 months, is she going to move here into my home, or is she going to get her own place? So, we talked about that, like what would be the pros and cons to that. And it's like, why have two of everything? Why do that? Just to what? If she were to rent something, she'd be locked into a lease for another year. So it was like, why? And what's the worst that's going to happen? She's going to move here, and what? 6 months from now, we'll have even, in my opinion, we're going to have even a more solid foundation, because we're going to continue to talk and build on that. We talk about everything. Like, again, this is only my third same-sex relationship. But even with my ex-husband, we did not have the conversations that Holly and I have, and talk about the future and the things that we want out of it. And how are we going to make it happen? We know that, we're going to want to buy property or buy a house. Ideally, we'd like to do something multi-generational. So which means we'll probably have to buy property and build a house. Because I'd like for my kids to be close, and, be, active in raising grandchildren when that happens. So we've already talked about a timeline, Holly moving here in 6 months, and then, getting engaged and getting married, and then buying property and building a house. I'm a planner. That's what my group is about organizing events and planning things. So I'm quite the planner. So I don't have a problem, bringing up those conversations. And then she doesn't have a problem being a part of those conversations, which is foreign to me, because I've always, been in relationships where the people that I dated didn't want to be active participants in planning and being a part of those things. And Holly's like, okay, well then, all right, well, look, I'm going to take this job because that gives us a time frame as to when I can move. And then, once she's here, then we can take the next step to getting to the next place, So, I feel like right now, I think our biggest goal is the 6 months, closing the gap. And, we try to always make sure we have dates. Right now we know she'll be back in 2 weeks. We know she'll be back in 2 weeks after that.
No,
You're not coming back next weekend.
no, not next weekend. The weekend after
Right.
the
That's 2
second
weekends. Yeah. So we know we're going to do every 2 weeks. That's
Right.
the longest we're going to do, so we kind of break it down into goals like that. The next goal is in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks to get us to that 6 months. So it's
Right.
like smaller increments.
Smart. See, communication, right?
Yeah.
Whether you guys are both planners or not planners, as long as you're communicating, what you're saying is in past relationships, you haven't had that willingness of the other party to engage with you in that way. And that's really seems refreshing, right? To have that and to have somebody who's a participant who actually wants to build with you.
Absolutely. I have been in relationships, well, my marriage. I mean, I made every decision. I facilitated the whole thing. I mean, it really just felt like he got up and went to work and came home and ate dinner and went to bed and that was it. And, a paycheck was deposited in the joint bank account and we paid bills from it.
Right.
We didn't, there was no planning really.
Or talking about the future, or do you want to be together, or how are we feeling and all that?
No, I mean, I literally had
Right.
just said to him one day, I'm pregnant, we're having a baby, we should probably buy a house. And he was like, okay, let's do that. We didn't plan for it. There wasn't a goal set for it, and even in my first same-sex relationship, that was 5 years, there was no, there was talk of things, but nothing was ever set, and it was very well, you do this and I do that, and you're responsible for this over here. And, that's your problem and my problems are separate. And I never understood that concept because I was like, well, if we're together, should it always be us? And everything with Holly is always us and we, and that is refreshing, because I think that's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted that my whole life, and never had it. And even when I was married to my husband, there were things there that were kind of we and us in a way, but it never felt right. Because I was in a straight relationship and I was gay. I just didn't know it, So, that's why I say that life seems like a completely different life, than I'm really living life now. It feels like I was just stuck in survival mode for so long, just surviving. And now I'm living life and I'm thriving.
Well, and that's so great to not be caught in bitterness, to not, let yourself be stuck. Like a lot of people are stuck, right? Because it didn't work out, or, I'm too old, or I'm this. And you just go on and you've taken advantage of everything that's out there, including this, what, as you call her, Georgia Peach right next to you. Little Georgia Peach, right?
Georgia Peach, yeah.
You didn't shut yourself down. That's
no.
amazing, right?
I actually referred to her as my Georgia Peach for the longest time because I was like, I didn't want to use her name because I didn't want to, just in case, just in case something happened. And finally, my friends were like, the Georgia Peach is coming to Nashville. Shouldn't we at least know her name? And I was like, when she shows up on my doorstep, I'll tell you her name. Because up until then, my anxiety told me she's not going to come. She's not going to come. She's not coming. Even though we had these amazing conversations and we talked nonstop, my anxiety brain was like, she's not actually going to show up. And even though I could see she was traveling to Tennessee, I could see her location, I was like, no, this isn't real, until she was in my driveway. And then I was like, oh crap, she's really here, and then it just, that first time that we met, it was, I don't know, it just felt like I had known her already. I had known her forever. It wasn't
our first date.
Right. So our first date.
You talked so much, right?
We did. And our first date was Pride weekend, but she came in on Friday and she wasn't able to leave work early. So, she got here at 1 a.m. So we joked that our first date was a sleeping date because she got here, she showered, and we went to bed. And it was like, hey, it's nice to finally meet you in person.
Right.
Kiss, let's go to sleep. Good night.
Right. Well, the person I'm dating now, I think the first time she came from Vegas to Tucson, she arrived at 6 or 7 a.m. So I was like, well, like it is what it is. And she did move in with me, and then she moved out, 3 months later, Corey? We're dating now, but we're living like 3 minutes apart. So I don't plan ahead. I don't talk about all this. I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. And then we just had too many animals and too much going on and too much in one tiny place, But I aspire to be a planner like you and to think ahead and talk ahead. So it's good that you're doing all that. And the fact that, I don't know if you have a bunch of animals or not, or how big your place is, but given that your kids are older, I assume it's not as much of a big deal. So let's say Holly moves in and then you're like, oh, we need a little space, or everything's great because you're both working full time and, you're not just sitting around at the house and stuff.
Right. Like, I've already cleaned out closet space for Holly.
Mm-hmm.
Dressers, the whole nine. Like, I feel like, if you really want somebody in your life, you need to make room for them. And so I wanted to make room for her. I wanted to manifest her being here, as soon as possible. So I cleaned out closet space and I made dresser space and I organized everything a little differently. And then she's like, hey, this opportunity came up. And I was like, glad I made that closet space, even though
right.
you need it for 6 months,
Right.
But I live in a house. My daughters live here. My oldest daughter's boyfriend's getting ready to move in. My youngest daughter's boyfriend practically already lives here. It's just a full house and I'm just used to that, because it's been like this for a while. Like I've always kind of had like this open door policy at my home. So, if it's not one of the girls' boyfriends living here or with us, it's always been one of their friends. I've always had extra people, like whether it's the kids, the girls' friends, like staying for months on end or living with me for a year, or their boyfriends. So it's just always been like that. And that's kind of like what I love. I love having like that, I guess, because I don't have a lot of family. Like outside of that, I love like them bringing in their friends or their boyfriends and creating our own family. And that's what we talk about, building our own family together. So, yeah.
So Holly, how are you feeling about all this? Like, I'm curious to know like how this relationship might be different than the ones you've had previous. You've been out for a while. I'm assuming you've had some other relationships. How do you it seems like you might know that this is something that you really want. If you're already making arrangements with your job so soon, you'd be moving into a full house, all this stuff, but you feel really good about this relationship. What makes it different than the ones you're in before?
Well, other than the other ones being younger, more immature, I was younger too, and I started therapy a few years ago, and before therapy, my last relationship was 6 years ago, I would say. That one ended really, really badly. So, I took some time to work on myself. But yeah, this relationship, it just feels different. It's easy. It's not like you have to force anything. I can talk to her about anything, usually. Usually. It just feels natural. The other relationships, I felt like I had to force everything. Conversation or, the love, or what I thought was love at the time, it really wasn't. And maybe I did have love for them, but it doesn't feel like this at all.
See, it's like as if you guys have listened to our whole podcast series and are living it out right in front of our very eyes. It's everything we talk about: therapy, communication, being open to the other person. Amazing.
Yeah, I think it's been helpful. Because she's been in therapy for 2 years. I've been in therapy for 2 years. And I think that, honestly, I think therapy is a big element. I think that's a big key.
Always is. Always is. Therapy is the greatest thing on earth.
So building on that, besides therapy, what kinds of advice would you give? We have a lot of listeners who tune into a specific episode because they're experiencing something very similar and they like to know what people are doing. So it's great when we're able to have folks on like you all talk about your personal experiences. So what kind of, I don't know if it's like more advice, but more just like things that have worked for you all to navigate some of these big differences and be able to do it kind of early on in your relationship to set the tone, moving forward. Like, so what are some of the things you would say to our listeners?
Well, the first one would be communication. You definitely need it, whether it's for age gap reasons or long distance, whatever. Communication is the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
If it's long distance, I would say dates. You need to set dates in order to make it work. Otherwise, you're gonna have somebody freaking out.
Yeah, you have to have that time to look forward to. Like, you know that. We know we're going to see each other in 2 weeks. If you don't have another time set, then it starts to feel like, oh my God, when am I going to see them? I'm never going to see them again. We use a lot of different types of communication too. Like we will text, we've got Snapchat, we do FaceTime, we talk on the phone. So,
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook. So we use all of it. We can have two totally different conversations going at the same time between text message and Snapchat, and then one of us will post something on Facebook, and then next thing you know, we've got a whole another third conversation going off of comments, on Facebook. So, and we're just very open. I think openness, like not having, like we know what we're doing all the time, like we're just very open and honest. We don't keep anything from one another, you have to have honesty and communication and trust and all of those things. And you have to have the hard conversations, which I think is one of the things that really helps. I've read the book, 8 Dates by John Gottman.
Talk about that. That's awesome.
I'm a huge John Gottman fan, and Sue Johnson, Hold Me Tight. Like I've read all of those books. They're actually sitting on my makeup table right here. I'm looking at them. And I've read all of those books. So I've incorporated a lot of those things into this relationship. I mean, she doesn't know it, but like 8 dates, that's 8 conversations. And I always said to myself, after I read the book, I'm going to incorporate these conversations into somebody that I'm interested in. And so we've had these conversations. We didn't have them as dates because of the distance between us,
right.
But we've had the conversations about, the things that you're supposed to talk about, finances, family, religious, beliefs, childhood, future plans, all of those things. We've had all of those conversations. We just didn't have them going out on dates. So, maybe you could consider them virtual dates. I don't know.
I do. And I think I've said this on the podcast before. I've done it all in one day because that's how lesbians roll. Let's just get it over. My old police partner used to say, you don't have to tell them everything on the first day. And I'm like, yes, I do. I need to get it all out there, and it needs to last at least 15 hours, and we need to know it all. That's how it works faster that way. Why? I don't have time to waste.
Exactly. And
Thank you.
I agree that we've had a lot of these conversations. We had them very early on because who wants to waste time if you know that there is going to be this huge difference? If one of you has strong religious beliefs and the other doesn't, why are you going to try to force, a round peg into a square hole? So we had those conversations. From the jump, I said to her, I have 2 grown adult daughters, they're 25 and 22, and they both still live with me, and they're probably going to live with me for a while, maybe forever, because we've talked about a multi-generational home. I only want to date somebody who is going to be on board with a multi-generational home or having property that has 3 different homes. And she's like, yeah, I'm fine with that. Cool, I'll sit around the campfire and sing Kumbaya or something.
Right. But see, you're making your own way of living, and you're talking to your partner about, this is the way I want to live, and this is what I want. And if they were like, oh, no way, or then what's the point?
Right. I had talked to other women on Facebook dating, and I was the same way with them. Like, here's what I'm about, and here's my life as it is right now. And, I had several who were like, that absolutely does not jive with, with my views or what I want to do in life. I mean, I had one woman who was like absolutely floored that my adult daughter still lived with me. It just blew her mind. And she was like, oh my God, they're old enough. Like they should be out of the house. Like what in the world? And I was like, do you know what rent is like in today's day and age and what housing and what expenses are? I'm like, heck, I mean, it's hard for the younger generation, and plus I just don't have a lot of family. It feels good to have them close to me.
And you like it, right?
I do. I like it a lot. I don't,
right.
Even if they could afford to go out on their own, I don't know that I would be pushing them
right.
out.
Well, and all that matters is what you want.
Well, and the part two is that the fact that you would even have to make excuses for it, right? You want a partner that you don't even have to defend this to.
Right.
It just says, I trust that you and your daughters know what's best for whatever's happening, and I trust that, and I want to be a part of that. And,
yes.
Without having to explain it and, defend it.
Well, or always have a battle with somebody over it.
Right.
Well,
not worth it.
The last relationship I was in, the reason I ended the relationship is because she got jealous of the relationship that I have with my youngest daughter. And she accidentally sent me text messages that was talking about me and my daughter. She actually sent those text messages to me that were supposed to go to somebody else. And so I was like, clearly you have an issue with my relationship with my children. And that is an issue for me. Like, I'm not proceeding forward with it. So, like, from the jump, I said to Holly, I said, I'm very close with them, and if you're going to be jealous of the relationship that I have with my daughters, this isn't going to work. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm living, the life that I'm living. And I have no desire to change it. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's one of the things that works for us because Holly doesn't have like this strong family foundation. And so I think it is for her, I think it feels, it's like coming into like this already made family that has like some stability to it, and I think that's something that she's lacking in her life and she's able to get that here. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
And fantastic because you're able to capitalize on the differences. So instead of it being like a problem that, that this is happening, it's like you see the benefits, right? Like my daughter's living with me is, there are more people to be around us in a loving space. Like come be a part of that, right? As opposed to like tolerate this.
Right.
It's like this is here for us to be together. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation with you two. I mean, really just kind of, I don't know, sort of busting some of those norms that people have, the naysayers out there that say, this can't work, this can't work. I mean, you two are really, really making way with it. And especially love the stuff you're talking about around kind of your own self-work and then also being able to be very communicative. And it just keeps coming back to that. So thank you both so much for taking the time to be on with us today and sharing and being vulnerable. And we will definitely put some information about the Facebook group Lesbian Journeys in the show notes so that other people can get connected. And
and Corey, maybe we need to go have a trip on this lake. I mean,
I know.
Like we can go down slides. I was like, slides.
Pontoons? I'm like,
I won't be topless, but I will go down the slide.
I'll go
what does that mean? Where's the slide? Is it like one of those giant floating slide, like a floating blow up slide or something?
No, the pontoon boats have slides.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look this up on the internet. I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, I'm looking up Lesbian Journeys right after we get off this podcast.
Awesome. Well, again, both of you, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it. And for all of our listeners out there, until our next episode, go out there and rock those relationships. If you liked what you heard, check out our show notes for resources from today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram under Rock That Relationship and go to our website at rockthatrelationship.com for updated episodes and more great information.
Thanks for listening. Now go rock those relationships.